Indeed, an honor to have in studio those from the Hall of Honor, Bill Misiewicz, and the chair, Dennis Duerling. And Dennis, if you could, why don't you let us know who is going to go into the Hall of Honor?
We have 5 people this year. We have Phil Klinkner, we have Ann Magnussen, Ginny Mann, Alan Paulson, and Neil Steinhagen.
All very worthy. Now, what class is this for our Hall of Honor?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. I think this is our 4th.
Yep. 4th class? Okay, very good. How did this all get started?
A phone call from Gary DeLacy, the superintendent, to me and said, I'd like to meet you for lunch. I have an idea, and I'd like you to chair a committee. Well, okay, we'll see what we do. Well, we want to do something to honor the people who've attended Clinton High School and have gone on to fame, Hall of Fame, but honor them in a Hall of Honor, and academics, in medicine, in military, in just community accomplishments. And he said, I'd like you to chair that. Let's put our heads together and get some committee members and try to get this going. Do it once a year.
I would imagine one of the first people you reached out to was Bill Misiewicz, who is quite the historian at Clinton High School, of course, also a member of the Athletic Hall of Fame as I. Bill, the one thing I stood out to me when we put together the Athletic Hall of Fame was the people that are worthy of being in this Athletic Hall of Fame. Did that strike you when you were putting together the Hall of Honor, the people that should be in this Hall of Honor?
Well, when you start going through all the records and trying to find people for the athletics, you started coming across people whose names were popping up in other areas and other fields. And it just made sense to start digging a little bit deeper, and we have just actually scratched the surface. We keep finding more and more people every year, and then you start looking into them. You know, it's like anything else. Time passes and people forget, and then as soon as you start digging, and I'll give you an example a little bit here of one person that all of a sudden they pop out and you go, how did we miss this guy or this woman?
It is amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the individuals that will be going on. We'll kind of do a little bit of a bio for each of the 5. Again, all certainly worthy. Let's start with the first one there.
Okay, we'll go in alphabetical order, and that's Phil Klinkner. He was a graduate class of 1981, and he was being nominated by this committee in the person for his accomplishments in the academic fields. He served as the James Sherman Professor of Government at Hamilton College. He received his doctorate from Yale University. I know Phil from back in the days, because I was a guidance counselor then, and he was on the high school bowl team. He was captain of our high school bowl team, and we would go down to the Quad Cities, get on KWQC TV and do that. The team beat everybody in the state of Iowa, and then we had to go against the Illinois side, and we lost in that championship. But there's a trophy somewhere down there that has Phil's name on it. He was on with some excellent people. I have the claim to fame that I say that I was captain of that team. Well, I was the coach. And as we would drive down to the TV station, all the kids would be asking each other questions, and I was the dumbest one in the car. But Phil, he founded a thing called Poli-Sci, S-I-G-H, Poli-Sci, a blog, first time blogs have kind of been going, featuring commentary from a group of political professors. And that was the first generation of academic blogs. This guy is quite knowledgeable. I remember seeing him on TV. I don't know what show, it might have been PBS, whatever, but they would have some professor talk about their books. And
Well, he received his doctorate from Yale.
Yes.
Not, Yale.
The Yale, yeah.
I don't think if you mentioned that. And he's quite relevant in the field of political science, even still today.
So, Denny, when you saw him on TV, what were your first initial thoughts? I go, oh, my goodness, I know this kid.
Yeah, I said, what? And he was talking about something like in the car, went over my head. I did not know what he was talking about. But a very intelligent, down-to-earth guy. I believe he was a swimmer. in high school, too.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, very good. So Phil Klinkner up next.
Oh, Ann Magnussen. And you're talking, she graduated in 1916. So let's put that, again, back into perspective about the role of women in society at this time. She goes on and she studies nursing up in La Crosse, and then eventually from the University of Minnesota. And she's serving as a local rep in the area in Plymouth County in Iowa. She goes down to St. Louis, where her role expands. And so now this is about 1939. Okay, so we all know what happened between 1939 and 1945. The war comes, and she's transferred down to Atlanta. And Atlanta had a huge veterans hospital where the men who came back, the men and women who came back, were in really bad shape. And so she's moving on, and she's organizing the facilities for people to make it better for what they call disaster nursing. And then eventually, by the 1960s, she's getting into she's settling into her role as one of the top people in the Red Cross organization. We're talking the International Red Cross. She's only one of 3 American women to win the Florence Nightingale Award. They actually have today in the Red Cross the Ann Magnussen Award, which recognizes leadership and contributions of the nurse behind the award and demonstrates the respect that nurses have. So think about it. 1916, she leaves Little Clinton, Iowa. And 1916, if you remember, we're on the verge of entering World War I. So she's pretty much seen it all.
Just amazing. Now, when will be the Hall of Honor induction ceremony? Is that in the spring, or when will that take place, Dennis?
It's in the spring. We do have a date set. I have it written down, but I forgot. But I know Gary and the high school principal are organizing all the details for that. So we're kind of out of that loop because we want the students involved and to have it a day that will work into their schedule. Of course, with the new building going on and so forth and so on.
Well, obviously, Phil certainly will be there, or hoping that he'll be there. But what about Ann's not going to be there? But have you been able to track down any family members at all? You do such a good job. I mean, you got Duke Slater's niece, great niece, to
come. Let me tell you, the internet is an absolute wonderful tool for searching for people, as we all know. And I think Mr. DeLacy's trying to track down, because he was the nominee for, I think I might have had a hand in nominating her as well, but he's looking for that. It's just really tough to try to get some of these, family members, track them down. Some of these people, they haven't been back in this area. It's like your great-great-grandparents or even your grandparents. Well,
in 1916, they just recently would have had their 104th class reunion.
Oh, wow.
We got 3 more to cover. We're going to take a break for the weather right now, brought to you by Midas.
Happy Thursday. Going to be another gloomy day today. We have a cold front that's going to swing in later on this afternoon that will regenerate a chance of a couple of flurries, but also keep temperatures rather chilly for us. We are only going to see highs around freezing, and with some breezy winds, we likely are only going to feel like the teens and low 20s throughout the day. Tonight going to be a chilly night as temperatures will drop to the teens for overnight lows. This has been your Storm Track 8 weather update from meteorologist Morgan Strackbine.
Sky's a little overcast yet, 26 degrees. Our update brought to you by Midas. At the Clinton Midas on Lincoln Way, they know that winter is on the way, and they want you to be prepared for those winter weather driving conditions. See the Clinton Midas for new tires to grip the road. They offer a great selection of tires no matter what you drive. Of course, you will want to make sure your battery is ready for those cold mornings and that your antifreeze can handle the cold. See them if your check engine or ABS light is on. They can diagnose the problem and get you on the road. And of course, see Midas for brakes. The Clinton Midas, 1432 Lincoln Way, 242-2511. FYI, continuing again, Dennis Duerling, Bill Misiewicz, we're talking about the Hall of Honor. We've already gone over 2 of the bios. We got 3 more to go over. Dennis?
Yes, I'm happy to announce that Ginny Mann, the class of 1964, was nominated in the area first one in this area in exceptional contributions to the Clinton Community School District. Now get this, Ginny Mann graduated in May of 1964 and was hired as a secretary at Clinton High School in July of 1964. She is still employed by the school district there for over 58 years.
That is remarkable.
She is currently the registrar, and she handles all the grading and the point systems and the transcripts and anything that has to do with the school records and the students and their academics.
Can I interrupt here just a moment?
Yes, you can.
When we started doing the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Honor, of course, you have to verify records of attendance and or transfers and move-ins and the such. And we have our records that date all the way back, and I've seen them because they were kept on basically index cards. Then they go all the way back to about 1879, and then from there it gets a little bit more. And Ginny and I have been working together probably like the last 5 years with all of the Hall of Fame and Hall of Honor material together. And she, when I walk into that office, she goes, "Who are we looking for today?" And I said, "Here we go." And she knows exactly where to go, what to do. I mean, you're talking within 2 minutes, you know, and then you go into the back room, and Denny, I think you've been into the back room there for the records in the counseling department. I mean, you're talking.
What a resource to have. And
incredible.
Congratulations to her, because she is probably so unassuming, had no idea that she should even belong to something like this, yet she certainly is worthy of the Hall of Honor.
Well, knowing Ginny, she's a very quiet person, doesn't want any attention, does her job, 58 years, does her job. I was afraid she would say, "Nah, somebody deserves it better." But Bill was talking about records. I remember those index cards when I came to Clinton High, we just had those. But then they also had this big metal filing cabinet that you would pull out, and you had to have a key and open, solid steel. It made it through the fire, which brings me up to another thing. Ginny witnessed the fire in 1968. You know, she was there, and she talks about where she had to go. Up to the balcony of yard was where they held the guidance office, and she kept all the records and everything up there. And ironically, she was there with the rebuilding of the school, and now she's going to be there when the building comes as to part of the opening of the phase 1 in January.
She probably has no plans of retirement.
Well, boy, I tell you, I know the principal doesn't want her to retire, without a doubt. As Bill is a historian for the stuff he does, Ginny is the historian for Clinton schools.
Yeah. Okay, that's 3 down. We've got 2 more worthy inductees to our Hall of Honor.
All right, this one, Mr. Alan Paulson. We uncovered him through the Synergy program, where the kids, I just said, "Hey, I want to test you out and see how well you could look up certain materials and use the internet in, educational manner." And we went to some websites, and Phil Swanson, the other facilitator, said, "How about this guy?" And I said, "I've heard of this gentleman, but I don't know anything about him." Alan Paulson didn't graduate from Clinton High School. However, he did attend Clinton High School. And in the Hall of Honor bylaws, all you need to do is attend Clinton High School. So he had to move at the age of 13. This was about 1937, out to California. He had a family situation here where at the age of 13 and 14, he was basically living on his own and cleaning a hotel just to get by. His family basically abandoned him. He then goes out to California, and he gets a job through TWA. He serves in the Air Corps during World War II. He then goes back to TWA, uses the GI Bill to enhance his education. Before you know it, this guy is wheeling, dealing, buying automobiles from Chicago, bringing them out to California. Then all of a sudden he gets into airplane parts, because there's plenty of airplane parts as aviation technology advances. And now he's the middleman, and he's buying used parts, selling used parts of planes. Then he becomes a pretty darn good pilot at the same time, and he's setting world records for aviation speed, fuel use, coverage of distance and such. They develop new planes. All the time he's buying and acquiring more, aviation properties. In 1982, he bought Rockwell International Aviation Division. I mean, this guy becomes a multi-millionaire. Then he gets into horse racing, where his most famous horse was Cigar, which was Horse of the Year, went on to won the Breeders' Cup. He was one of the finest American horse race breeders and owners and racers. Then he got into gaming. I mean, this guy, he was the Howard Hughes. And I know that's a cultural reference nobody really knows anymore, but this guy was incredible.
Seems like he wanted to have his hands in everything.
And he did.
And successfully.
Yeah, very successful. The world was his oyster. That was certainly the thing.
I really wish he was alive to share his story with the students. Rags to riches.
Literally rags to riches.
That would be amazing to hear what he has to say. When did he pass?
He passed away in 2000. And so, you talk about trying to find somebody and connect. If anybody's listening to the show and they have a connection, please reach out to either Denny or I, or even you, Gary, here at the station. We spent about an hour the other day just trying to track him down through his kids and his family split up. He had 2 wives and such, and he's passed. So everybody's out in California. So
So that is 4. We've got one more inductee to talk about.
Well, we're going to tag team on this one, and that's Neil Steinhagen. Neil graduated in the class of 1992, and he was nominated in the area of Distinguished Military Service. I remember the young man, I think it was not ROTC or something like that, when they had the awards ceremony, and a big wig came from Navy to talk about him and say that he's going to be enlisting in the Navy after he graduated. And then he graduated from the Nuclear Enlisted Commissioning Program. And this guy goes on to then command the USS Illinois, which was developed into submarine operations. What a guy.
Okay, so Neil, again, that incredible class of 92. And I had Neil, I believe, as a sophomore in high school. And he was so well-read, and he really enjoyed history. I think Mr. Massey had him as a senior, and they loved all that, discussion of politics and the such. He was very focused young man. He gets into the USS Illinois, which was commissioned for a year. He had a very young crew. He was in the South Pacific, I believe, on his work, whipped that crew into shape. And then he recently turned over the command of the Illinois to another officer, and I believe he's been deployed in Guam.
So I would imagine he should be able to make it back.
I think so. Yeah,
I would imagine he still has family in the area.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Well, that is great.
Yeah. Yes, I think his mom is still in the area.
Okay. We had Denny read off the names at the beginning of the show. Bill, I'll have you do the honors for the end of the program. Again, if you could list the 5 going into our Hall of Honor.
Okay, the inductees are going to be Philip Klinkner, Ann Magnussen, Ginny Mann, Alan Paulson, and Neil Steinhagen.
We got about 4 or 5 minutes left in the program. Let's talk a little bit more about the Hall of Honor. Dennis, how often do you folks get together?
Well, that's a good question, because that leads us into something we definitely want to say. We're looking for new nominations right now. We don't know who's out there. We have a nomination that came from California that we said, where'd this come from? And it's a great one, which didn't make the top 5, but it's a great one. And how they found out about it, their niece or nephew told them, and they said, hey, this is something our cousin needs to be nominated for. So please, if you have an idea about someone, of course you have the guru here. He can look up a lot of things. But we want to get the nominations to us because we're looking at that now. Our goal was always to have the induction in April, and it will be April 21st of this year. And it's also in conjunction with the awards ceremony at Clinton High School. But once we get these nominations, we start meeting, and bam, we start having Bill do the research, and each committee member needs to come up with somebody too, and they have to provide the research. We want to let the winners, nominees, know before Christmas so they can maybe make arrangements to attend.
Bill, as I pointed out, you're also a member of the Athletic Hall of Fame, and I know when we select who's going to be going into the hall, there's always those who are just outside and are probably going to be admitted in a year or possibly a year or two. Are you seeing that sort of same thing with the Hall of Honor?
Actually, we're at that point for the Hall of Honor where it's a wide open ocean. We're trying to find that, what they call it, the needle in a haystack. I think if people, it's really not that hard to, do things. You just kind of look up, pick a name and put Clinton, Iowa behind it, and let's see what pops up. Or achievements. It's how you use your search engine, and having people on the committee contribute has helped out quite a bit. I think it's because everyone has a different idea of what a contribution is to the high school. You don't have to be let's say an Alan Paulson, a multi-billionaire, although we have quite a few of those, that have come through here. Or you don't have to be a military hero like Bull Connor, early on. And you can be just, the high school register office person for your contributions. Or you could have, we have one teacher who from the turn of the century all the way into the I think she taught over 50 some odd years.
That's amazing.
She was in the classroom with these people for 50 some odd years. That's amazing.
Now, again, April 21st, as you pointed out, is when it will be taking place. How does that day work? What all takes place on that particular day? I mean, what has happened in years past?
Well, years past may be different than this year due to the new building and what's the configuration. We'd like to have the families come in and meet, and we introduce them, and we give them a tour of the building, the honorees that come in. Ginny can give her own tour of the building. Ginny Mann can. And then we have a luncheon, and we introduce them at that time. And then at that time, we go into the little theater and have them give a little background so they can talk to the students. Or one of their relatives can talk to the students.
All right. If people would like to find out more information about the Hall of Honor, how can they best do that, gentlemen?
I would go to the Clinton Community School District website, and there's a search engine on there. Just put in the Hall of Honor. It'll take you to the nomination form. You can certainly, like the nomination we got from California, they didn't really use the form. They just had a letter. Very nice letter, and wrote on behalf of their inductee. So that you can just reach out. That's all you got to do, is reach out.
Thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.